Welcome back to part 2 of our deep dive into mastering language acquisition right at home.
Yeah, thanks for having me back.
Of course.
Yeah.
So, usually when you learn something new, like, say, driving a car, there's this expectation of a straight line of progress.
Right, like muscle memory taking over.
Exactly. You memorize the pedals, you learn the steering, and eventually the vehicle just, it feels like an extension of your body.
You don't even think about it anymore.
Exactly. But when you step into the world of learning a second language, that automatic transmission is, well, it's completely jammed.
Oh, completely. It's a very different cognitive landscape.
And it's incredibly frustrating for you as a learner. You know the words, you have the vocabulary stored somewhere in your brain. But when it's time to actually open your mouth and speak, there's this agonizing delay.
Yeah, that's what we call mental lag. And if we look closely at the linguistics literature, that lag is exactly what keeps so many learners stuck on that intermediate plateau forever.
Which brings us to our clear mission for today. We are deepening the vlogger method that we introduced previously.
We really are. We want to show you how to completely eliminate that habit of translating in your head.
Right. And we're going to explore how to turn your living space into a high-intensity immersion zone.
Yeah, the goal is to shift you away from passive consumption, just, reading or listening, and push you into active, pushed production.
Today is going to be tact. We're exploring this concept of immediate retrieval, and we'll uncover the scientific consensus on why you actually need to throw away your translation dictionaries.
Which I know sounds crazy at first.
Totally. And then we'll detail a 21-day practice designed to eradicate that mental lag and break down the exact mechanics of recording personal vlogs on your smartphone to, really refine your grammar.
And sitting here in my home office right now, I have to say, this topic is just so practical.
I can actually see you've got sticky notes and labels on almost everything behind you in your office.
Oh yeah, my whole space is a highly organized, labeled immersion zone. It's all about designing an environment that forces you to interact with the language. We are shifting from treating English as an academic subject to treating it like a functional survival mechanism.
I love that.
Oh.
So let's jump right in, because to stop translating in your head, the research says you first have to stop translating on the page or the screen.
That's right. The tools you use to look up words might actually be secretly holding you back.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because my immediate instinct, and I think the instinct for anyone listening who is trying to learn a language, is that when you come across a word you don't know, you reach for a dictionary that translates it into your native language.
Sure, that's the natural impulse.
Right, you want to understand it quickly. So the idea that this very tool is, sabotaging you, it feels really counterintuitive.
It does seem counterintuitive until you look at the empirical data. What's fascinating here is a study published in 2015 by researchers Hungary and Douglasara.
Okay, what do they do?
Well, they wanted to test exactly this assumption. They focused on 60 intermediate English as a foreign language, or EFL learners at a university in Iran.
So these are university students.
Right, sophomore students. So they already had a foundation. They weren't starting from scratch.
They were right on that intermediate plateau we just talked about.
Exactly. They were at that critical juncture where they needed to transition from basic understanding to actual retention and fluency. So the researchers divided these 60 students into 2 groups for a 5-session treatment.
5 sessions, okay.
Yeah. And the task was straightforward but demanding. They had to learn 100 new words taken from a widely used textbook called 504 Absolutely Essential Words.
Okay, that sounds intense.
It is. Now, Group A was instructed to learn these words using a standard bilingual dictionary, an English to Persian dictionary in this case.
So the path of least resistance.
Exactly. They would find the English word, read the Persian equivalent, and study the translation. But Group B, the experimental group, was strictly limited to using a monolingual English dictionary.
Wait, an English to English dictionary?
Yes, an English to English dictionary. They had to derive the meaning of these 100 new words by reading definitions, synonyms, and examples written entirely in English.
Wow, which means they're trying to solve a puzzle using the very pieces they don't understand yet.
Right, it's a huge cognitive load.
I imagine that was significantly more exhausting for Group B.
Oh, the researchers definitely noted the increased difficulty and frustration. But the post-test results after those 5 sessions, that's what we really need to focus on.
I'm guessing Group B pulled ahead.
They did. They administered a 20-point test to both groups. And the monolingual dictionary group, the ones who had to struggle through the English-only definitions, they significantly outperformed the bilingual group.
In just 5 sessions?
Yes. in both vocabulary learning and, crucially, long-term retention. The monolingual group achieved a mean score of 15.23, while the bilingual group scored 13.16.
Wow, a full 2-point difference just from changing the format of the reference material?
It's a statistically significant jump.
But, I mean, this is where I have to push back a little on behalf of anyone listening.
Go for it.
If I don't know a word, looking it up in a language I am already struggling with sounds like an absolute nightmare.
I hear that a lot, yeah.
Like if I'm looking up the word ubiquitous and the definition uses the word omnipresent, which I also don't know, I'm just caught in a loop. It's like trying to unlock a safe and the combination is locked inside the safe.
That is a great analogy. It really is.
Right. To me, bilingual dictionaries act like linguistic training wheels. But this data suggests those wheels just, I don't know, rust the bike and prevent you from actually writing.
That's spot on. The frustration you're describing is very real. But according to cognitive science, that headache is actually the biological mechanism of learning itself.
The headache is the point.
Basically, yeah. The literature refers to this as the retrieval effort hypothesis.
Okay, what does that mean in plain English?
It posits that the more difficult it is for your brain to retrieve a piece of information, or to decode a meaning from context, the stronger and more durable that memory becomes once you finally synthesize it.
Oh, I see. So it's like taking a connecting flight through your native language every time you want to speak.
Yes, exactly.
If your brain is a departure board, you want to fly direct from concept to English. But the bilingual dictionary forces you to have a layover in your native language first.
And you are guaranteeing a delay. That layover is the mental lag.
Right. Every single thought has to stop and pay a translation toll.
That is a highly accurate way to visualize it. A bilingual dictionary provides this false sense of security.
Because it gives you concrete answers.
Exactly. You look at the English word, you see the translation in your native language, and your brain signals, I know what that is. But you haven't actually learned the English word's specific weight or its nuance.
You've just reminded yourself of a word you already knew in your native language.
Right. You are just reinforcing the L1 to L2 mental link.
L1 being your native language and L2 being English.
Correct. And neurologically, that translation link is always going to be slower and weaker. You're practicing the act of translating, which is a completely different cognitive skill than the act of speaking fluently.
So you're basically training for the wrong sport.
Exactly. And honestly, that translation is often faulty anyway because languages rarely map onto each other perfectly word for word. This is where the monolingual advantage becomes really apparent in the data.
Because it demands immediate retrieval.
Yes. When learners use what is known as an advanced learner's dictionary, they're forced into immediate retrieval of the target language concepts.
Let's define that tool specifically, because if we're telling you to throw out your bilingual dictionary, we need to be clear about the replacement.
For sure.
What makes an advanced learner's dictionary different from, the giant, dusty Oxford English dictionary sitting in a university library?
Well, a standard dictionary is compiled for native speakers. Its goal is comprehensive linguistic accuracy.
So it's going to use really complex, maybe even archaic or academic language in the definitions.
Exactly. An advanced learner's dictionary, however, is a pedagogical tool specifically engineered for people learning the language. It's usually calibrated for a B2 proficiency level or above.
Okay, so upper intermediate.
Right. And the structural difference is that they utilize a restricted defining vocabulary.
Meaning they limit the words they are allowed to use to explain other words.
Yes, exactly. The lexicographers who write these dictionaries restrict themselves to using only the most frequent 2,000 or 3,000 words in the English language to write every single definition.
Oh, wow. So going back to my safe within a safe analogy, if you look up a complex, obscure word, the explanation is structurally guaranteed to be written in simple, high-frequency English that a learner probably already knows.
Right. It essentially breaks that loop you were worried about. You aren't going to look up ubiquitous and find omnipresent.
What would I find instead?
You're going to find a phrase like found everywhere at the same time.
That is so much more accessible.
It is. And furthermore, reading the definition in English actively immerses the learner in the language's natural ecosystem.
Okay, natural ecosystem. I like that phrasing.
The Hungary study emphasizes that by using the monolingual tool, learners absorb synonyms, antonyms, and most importantly, collocations.
Okay, break down collocations for us.
So collocations are the habitual juxtaposition of a particular word with another word, or words with a frequency greater than chance.
In simpler terms.
In simpler terms, it's the words that naturally group together. Like in English, we say heavy rain, not thick rain.
Even though heavy and thick can be synonyms in other contexts.
Right. Or we say make a mistake. We don't say do a mistake.
Oh, I see.
A monolingual dictionary teaches you the word embedded within these natural collocations. You aren't just learning a stark, isolated definition. You are learning how that word behaves grammatically around other English words.
So you're building direct neural pathways to the concept itself, completely bypassing that native tongue layover.
Exactly. You are learning the word in its native ecosystem.
So the data is basically telling us that the struggle is the point. The friction of reading the English definition is what actually builds the direct neural pathway.
It really is.
But here's the next logical hurdle. Forcing yourself to use an English-to-English dictionary only works when you are actually sitting at your desk, reading a book or actively studying.
Right, the formal study time.
Yeah. But what happens during the other 90% of your day when you aren't looking up words? Your brain is just going to default back to your native language. I mean, you can't carry a dictionary to the refrigerator.
And that transitions us perfectly into the next phase of the methodology outlined in our sources.
Which is?
Well, if we have rewired how you look up words internally, the literature suggests we must radically restructure how you encounter language externally.
Moving from the text booth to the living room.
Exactly. We are moving from the controlled environment into the chaos of daily life. The goal is to design an environment that triggers that immediate retrieval constantly, without relying on a dictionary at all.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The sources refer to this as digital ecosystem engineering.
Yes, and it is the absolute non-negotiable first step recommended for anyone serious about breaking through to fluency.
Okay, what does it entail?
It requires migrating all of your technological devices, smartphones, laptops, tablets, smartwatches, the GPS in your car, voice assistants like Alexa or Google Home, entirely to English.
I can hear people groaning already.
Oh.
Because changing your phone's language feels incredibly intrusive. We live our entire lives on these screens.
That intrusiveness is exactly why it is necessary. Think about it. We interact with these screens and interfaces dozens, if not hundreds of times a day.
Easily hundreds, right?
Right. So if your phone remains in your native language, you are providing your brain with hundreds of micro breaks from the target language every single day.
You're giving yourself an out.
Yes. You're signaling to your brain that English is just a subject you study at a desk, not a vital tool you need to navigate your life. But by switching the operating system to English, you force immediate retrieval under mild but constant pressure.
The stakes are suddenly real. If I don't know the English word for settings or alarm or snooze, I am literally going to be late for work.
Exactly.
If I don't know the word for brightness, I'm going to drain my battery. It's like turning your own apartment into a high-stakes escape room, where the only way to make your coffee or check the weather is to crack the English code.
I love that. And the voice assistants escalate this concept even further.
How so?
When a learner uses a voice assistant in English, they are engaging in low-stakes but highly rigid communication.
Rigid because it's a machine.
Right. If you tell a smart speaker, set a timer for boiling pasta, and your pronunciation is slightly off or your syntax is incorrect, the machine simply will not execute the command.
There's no human intuition to save you. Like
Yeah.
a human might hear you stumble through the sentence and say, oh, you mean you want a timer for your pasta? Got it?
Yeah,
The machine just gives you an error tone?
which provides immediate, unforgiving feedback.
That sounds brutal, honestly.
It can be, but there is no social judgment. There's no embarrassment like there might be with a native speaker. But there is a functional consequence. Your pasta overcooks unless you retrieve the correct phrasing and pronunciation.
The friction forces the brain to forge the pathway.
Exactly, because the language has suddenly become a required tool for survival in that specific moment.
Okay, so we've hijacked the digital environment. Let's look at how the sources suggest we hijack the physical environment.
Yes, physical space is just as important.
The outline details a concept called realia mapping. And I'll be honest, when I read this, it sounded like what every beginner does, buying a pack of sticky notes and slapping them on everything in the apartment.
Right, the classic sticky note phase.
A note on the fridge that says refrigerator, a note on the mirror that says mirror. I've definitely done that, and my apartment ended up looking like an office supply store exploded.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that is the traditional and largely ineffective version of realia mapping.
Why is it ineffective?
Because single-word labels are passive. They do not reflect how language is actually utilized or processed by the brain.
Okay, so what's the alternative?
To really eliminate mental lag, the research insists on a critical shift from single-word labels to what linguists call lexical chunks.
Define the difference mechanically for us. Why is a single word on a sticky note so bad?
Because the human brain does not store language as a massive dictionary of isolated words that it then hastily glues together with grammar rules in real time.
It doesn't.
No, it stores language in chunks or motor plans, much like a golf swing.
Oh, interesting.
When a native speaker talks, they are not consciously selecting individual words and conjugating verbs on the fly. They are grabbing pre-assembled chunks of language and linking them together.
So I want to ask someone how they're doing? I don't think. How plus R plus U. I just grabbed the single prepackaged unit. How are you?
Exactly. So mapping your environment with single words just reinforces that slow Lego building method of speaking.
Which causes the lag.
Right. Instead, a lexical chunk provides a phrase or a sentence frame that naturally occurs in daily life.
Give me an example of how that changes my kitchen.
Instead of a sticky note that just says refrigerator, your sticky note should present a functional phrase, something like, I need to grab something from the refrigerator, or let's see what we have in the fridge.
Yeah.
Instead of labeling the door, the note reads, I'm heading out the door now.
But the immediate pushback there is the cognitive load. It takes a lot more effort to read a full sentence every time I walk into the kitchen than it does to just glance at the word fridge.
That effort is the objective. And it ties directly into the neurology of contextual cues.
How so?
When you associate the physical action, the actual kinetic movement of pulling the refrigerator handle with reading that specific English phrase, you are creating a new trigger mechanism.
You're bypassing a native language entirely.
Yes. The physical movement becomes the trigger for the English thought.
You are hacking your muscle memory.
Exactly. Over a period of a few weeks, the brain ceases to need the visual cue of the sticky note at all.
It just becomes automatic.
Right. The mere act of reaching for the fridge summons the complete lexical chunk, I need to grab something from the fridge, seamlessly into your consciousness.
Because that kinetic action has been wired to that specific linguistic output.
Precisely.
Which fundamentally changes the feeling of your living space. We've taken the digital screens and the physical objects and turned them into these immersive cues.
It creates a totally different environment.
But looking at our roadmap, reading sticky notes internally, even if there are full lexical chunks, is still mostly a passive intake process.
That's true.
You're reading, you're not speaking. To truly erase mental lag, we have to bridge the gap between passive knowing and active, spontaneous speaking.
And this is where we transition from those environmental cues to vocal production. The sources guide us into the absolute core of this deep dive.
Deepening the vlogger method.
Yes. Specifically, outlining a 21-day practice designed to eradicate mental lag once and for all.
Okay, let's lay out the foundation of the vlogger method first for anyone new to it.
Sure.
At its core, it is the practice of maintaining a continuous running commentary of your daily life out loud in your target language. You basically operate as if there's a camera following you, and you are vlogging your highly mundane daily routine to an imaginary audience.
It requires speaking your internal monologue out loud, consistently.
And I have to admit, trying to implement this feels inherently ridiculous at first.
So it feels very weird.
You feel a bit unhinged walking around your empty kitchen talking to yourself.
That's
It's like being the ESPN color commentator for your own incredibly mundane life.
That's a great visual.
And here he goes reaching for the oatmeal. A bold strategy for a Tuesday morning. Like, it feels like a silly exercise.
It may feel performative or, uncomfortable, but the linguistic and psychological validity of this practice is heavily supported by recent data.
Tell me about the data.
Let's examine a pivotal 2026 study by researcher Sosnoshkant Kamaraj. This study involved 60 Thai EFL pre-service teachers.
So, university students training to become teachers.
Specifically computer teachers, yeah. And at the start of the study, they were assessed at an A2 level on the CEFR scale.
The common European framework of reference for language.
Right.
To give you some context, an A2 level is fairly basic. It's often described as survival English. You can handle simple, routine exchanges of information, maybe order a coffee or ask for directions, But you aren't having deep philosophical conversations.
Correct. They are basic users. So these 60 students participated in a 14-week program that was focused entirely on creating, recording, and peer-reviewing vlogs related to their fields.
They were forced to narrate their processes and thoughts on camera.
Exactly. And the post-test results were just staggering. Following the 14-week intervention, the participants moved from that basic A2 level to a solid B1 to B2 level.
Wait, a B2 level is upper intermediate.
Yeah.
That is the threshold where a learner can actually start explaining complex ideas, defending an opinion, and navigating most social and professional situations comfortably. Jumping from A2 to B2 in 14 weeks is a massive acceleration.
It's huge, and the statistical analysis of their speaking scores really underscores how massive it was. The study reported an effect size of D equals 4.11.
Okay, we need to pause and unpack that number.
Yeah.
Because for those of us who do not read statistical research papers for fun, what does an effect size of 4.11 actually represent?
Good question. In educational and psychological research, effect size measures the magnitude of a treatment's impact.
Okay.
Generally, an effect size of 0.2 is considered small. An effect size of 0.5 is a medium impact. And an effect size of 0.8 is considered a large, highly significant result.
So if 0.8 is a large impact, a 4.1 is completely off the charts.
It breaks the standard scale of expectation, yes.
That is like discovering a vitamin that makes you grow a foot taller overnight.
Yeah.
How is a statistical jump that massive even possible just from talking to a camera about your daily life?
Well, we see this corroborated in another study analyzed in our sources from SMK Laboratorium Jakarta, which focused specifically on the self-talk strategy.
What did they find?
They tracked students over 3 cycles of implementing self-talk into their learning routine. Initially, only 20% of the students were passing their speaking assessments.
That's rough.
But by the conclusion of the 3rd cycle, that passing rate had surged to 75%.
From 20 to 75.
Yeah. The data from multiple angles confirms that forced vocalization talking to yourself, it just works.
Oh, why?
To understand why a 4.11 effect size is possible, we have to deconstruct the mechanics of mental lag. We have to understand the disease to understand why this specific cure is so potent.
Okay, let's break down the lag. What is actually happening in the brain during that agonizing pause before someone speaks?
Mental lag exists because the untrained brain is executing a highly inefficient, multi-step process.
Okay, walk us through the steps.
Step 1. You conceive of a thought or a concept. Step 2. Your brain naturally forms the sentence structure in your L1, your native language, because that is the path of least resistance.
Sure, that's instantaneous.
Step 3. You attempt to translate that L1 sentence into your L2 English word by word.
And here comes the friction.
Exactly. Step 4. You scan that translated sentence against all the grammar rules you have memorized to check for errors.
Oh, man.
And finally, step 5. You send the signal to your vocal cords to speak.
It is exhausting just listing those steps out loud. No wonder conversations feel so disjointed when you're learning.
It's a massive cognitive load.
By the time you get to step 5, the native speaker you're talking to has already moved on to the next topic.
Exactly. So when you utilize the vlogger method to narrate familiar, mundane actions in your own home, you are intentionally manipulating that cognitive load.
Because you're talking about making oatmeal or finding your keys.
Right. You remove the pressure of needing to formulate a profound or complex thought. You aren't debating philosophy.
The subject matter is boring.
Yes, because the cognitive load of what you are saying is practically zero. Your brain can allocate 100% of its resources to how you are saying it.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
You are giving the brain a sandbox to play in, where the stakes are zero.
And by repeatedly narrating these mundane actions, you are forcing the brain to utilize high-frequency vocabulary.
The words and structures you need 90% of the time in daily life.
Exactly. This builds what linguists call available English.
Available English.
These are sentences and lexical chunks that you can reach for instantly, bypassing that L1 translation step entirely. You automate the sentence structure.
But I imagine the execution of this matters a lot. If a learner just wakes up on a Monday and tries to launch into a fluent 10-minute monologue about their morning routine, they are going to freeze.
Oh, absolutely. The multi-step translation process will crash their brain.
Right. So there has to be a progression to build this available English.
There is a highly structured progression. The sources highlight a scaffolding provided by Rachel's English. She's a leading pronunciation and fluency expert.
What does she recommend?
She details a 21-day timeline to build this habit systematically, without overwhelming the learner's cognitive bandwidth.
Okay, let's reason through this timeline. If I'm starting on day one, what is the lowest stakes way I can possibly begin? Because I assume I'm not telling stories yet.
No, not at all. Week one is purely about noticing.
Just noticing.
You do not try to tell a story or string together complex narratives. You simply state isolated facts about your immediate physical environment.
Give me some examples.
I see my keys, the coffee cup is hot, the sky is gray today, I am sitting in the chair.
It sounds almost like a mindfulness exercise. Grounding yourself in the present moment, but doing it exclusively in the target language.
That is the exact psychological mechanism at play. It is about training the brain to initiate an English thought the very moment an observation occurs.
Linking visual stimulus directly to English vocabulary.
Right, bypassing the native language completely.
Okay, so if week one is just static observation, how do we escalate in week two? I assume we have to introduce movement.
Yes. Week two transitions into actions and immediate plans. You are bridging the present moment to the immediate future.
So what do the phrases look like now?
The phrases become, I'm going to make coffee now. I need to answer this email. I am walking to the car.
You are teaching the brain how to narrate intention and physical action.
Exactly. We are building from static nouns and adjectives to verbs and future tense.
Which leads to week three. If we have observation and action, the next logical step is introducing internal states.
Spot on. Week three is where the syntactic complexity significantly increases. You introduce emotions and reasons, specifically utilizing conjunctions like the word because.
Okay, because.
The phrases become, I feel tired because I slept late. I am nervous because I have a large meeting today. I am happy because the sun is finally out.
Why is the word because so critical at this stage?
Because it forces the brain to connect two separate clauses. You are no longer just stating a single fact, you are explaining causality.
It's building advanced syntactic architecture in the brain.
Right, but you're still doing it in a very safe, controlled environment.
And that element of safety seems paramount here. If you stutter or use the wrong verb tense while talking to your coffee maker, the coffee maker doesn't judge you.
Exactly.
There is no native speaker tapping their foot impatiently, waiting for you to finish your sentence. It is a completely safe space to fail, self-correct, and try again.
Learner independence and the lowering of communication anxiety are major themes in the literature.
I can imagine.
The Thai study we discussed earlier specifically noted in its qualitative findings that the students felt their anxiety melt away.
Because they weren't being watched.
Right. They weren't performing for a grade in real time or fearing social embarrassment. They were practicing with themselves, allowing them to experiment with the language freely.
Okay, looking at the data, the vlogger method for building fluency, the speed and ease of generating language, is undeniably powerful.
It really is.
And the concept of building available English through a 21-day escalation makes total logical sense. But this brings up a very practical and I think very common fear.
Which is?
If I am just walking around my apartment talking to myself for 21 days, how do I know I'm not just cementing terrible grammar into my muscle memory?
Yes. Accuracy.
Like if I look at a cup and say the cup are hot every single morning for 3 weeks, haven't I just hardwired a grammatical error in my brain? Self-talk is great for speed, but what about accuracy?
That is the pivotal question, and it transitions us into the vital final step outlined in our sources. Self-talk is indeed incredible for fluency. But for accuracy, the correctness of the speech, the literature dictates that we must introduce an objective observer.
Okay, but since this method is designed to be executed at home alone, who is the observer?
That observer has to be your smartphone. We need to examine the mechanics of recording, output, and a linguistic principle called noticing the gap.
So we are no longer just pretending to vlog to an imaginary audience. We have to actually hit the record button on the camera.
Yes. The specific, highly effective mandate is to use your smartphone to actually capture these daily vlogs on video.
Oh, okay.
And to understand why hitting record is so transformative, we need to look at Merrill Swain's output hypothesis, which is a cornerstone concept in language acquisition research.
Let's contrast it with what most people are familiar with. For a long time, the dominant theory was all about input, right?
Yes. Specifically, Stephen Krashen's theory of comprehensible input.
What did that dictate?
The prevailing wisdom was that if a learner just listens and reads enough of the target language, if they soak in enough input, they will naturally and automatically acquire the ability to speak it.
Sort of the sponge method. Just surround yourself with English media, watch Netflix, listen to music, and hope it sinks in.
Exactly. And while input is absolutely necessary, Swain argued through her research that it is not sufficient on its own for true mastery.
What was missing?
Her output hypothesis posits that learners also need pushed output. They need to be pushed or cognitively forced to produce the language themselves.
Let's dig into the biology of that. What is actually happening differently in the brain when we are forced to output versus when we are just passively taking in input?
It comes down to the difference between semantic processing and syntactic processing.
Okay, break that down for us.
When you are taking input, when you are listening to a podcast or reading a news article, your brain is engaging primarily in semantic processing. You are scanning for the meaning, the general gist of the message. If the speaker uses a highly complex or even slightly incorrect grammar structure, your brain might not even register it as long as you understand the underlying point being communicated.
Oh, I see. Your brain takes cognitive shortcuts to derive meaning quickly.
Right.
Sure, you get the vibe of the sentence without needing to analyze the architectural blueprints of how it was built.
Exactly. But outputting language, specifically speaking, forces the brain into syntactic processing.
So you have to build the blueprint yourself.
Yes. When you have to open your mouth and assemble the sentence yourself, you cannot rely on shortcuts. You suddenly realize the gaps in your knowledge.
Like you think you know a word until you have to say it.
You think, wait, is it in the desk or on the desk? Did I make a decision or do a decision? You realize you don't actually know how to construct the architectural blueprint until you are forced to build the house yourself on camera.
So what does this all mean for the learner? Turning the camera on creates the push in pushed output. It forces you to construct the sentence without a safety net.
It does.
But that still doesn't solve the problem of me not knowing if the sentence I built was actually correct. If I record myself saying, "the cup are hot," I still made the mistake on tape. How does the recording fix it?
It fixes it through the review process. It requires you to become your own critic.
Oh boy.
You have to record yourself speaking, and then, and this is the uncomfortable part, you have to sit down and watch the playback.
You have to watch it.
Yes. While you watch it, you are actively practicing what researcher Richard Schmidt defined as the noticing hypothesis, specifically a concept called noticing the gap.
Okay, I have to interject here because realistically, nobody likes the sound of their own voice on tape.
It's universally hated.
Listening to a recording of yourself is cringe-inducing on a good day. Now, add the layer that you are listening to yourself stumble through a language you are struggling to learn. That sounds like a form of mild psychological torture.
It's definitely not easy.
And more importantly, if I don't know the grammar rule in the first place, watching myself make a mistake on video doesn't magically teach me the rule.
Yeah.
I'm just watching myself fail in high definition.
Yeah.
So how does this actually lead to improvement?
It is deeply uncomfortable, you're right. But that discomfort is literally the sound of the mental lag being diagnosed.
Diagnosed.
Yeah. Let's look at how noticing the gap works in practice. When you play back your vlog, you aren't just passively watching, you are auditing your speech.
What are you listening for?
You are listening for hesitations. Where did your brain freeze? You are listening for words you leaned on too heavily because you couldn't retrieve a synonym. And you're listening for grammatical structures that sound clunky or incorrect upon review.
Okay, so I watched the video and I noticed that I paused for 6 excruciating seconds trying to remember the word for spatula. Or I noticed that I used the present tense when talking about yesterday. I have noticed the gap. What is the next step?
That act of noticing triggers the next phase. Hypothesis testing.
Hypothesis testing.
The gap is the conscious realization of the mismatch between your interlanguage, which is your current imperfect in progress version of English, and the target language, which is native level English.
So when I spoke on camera, I was making a guess.
Yes. You tried a phrase on video. It was your hypothesis of how English works. During playback, you realized it sounded wrong.
So the recording acts as the diagnostic tool. It isolates the specific error.
Precisely. Now, how do you fix it? You return to the first tool we discussed today, your monolingual advanced learner's dictionary, or perhaps a monolingual grammar resource.
I'm bringing it full circle.
You look up the correct phrase, you study the collocation, you discover that it should be "the cup is hot," not "are."
Okay.
And then the critical final step. The next day, when you record your new vlog, you intentionally try the corrected phrase again. You test the new, refined hypothesis on camera.
Okay, this cycle makes logical sense, but it still feels emotionally daunting. To consistently record yourself, Isolate your flaws and study them.
It's a grind.
How do the sources suggest a learner does this without getting completely demoralized? Like if I watch a 10-minute video of myself making constant errors, my instinct is going to be to delete the file, close the dictionary, and go watch Netflix in my native language.
This raises an important question, and motivation and resilience are heavily addressed in the literature. The key is cognitive reframing.
How do we reframe it?
You must train yourself to treat these video recordings as raw data, not as a performance or a measure of your self-worth.
It's not an audition.
Exactly. You have to adopt the mindset of a scientist observing a subject, and the subject simply happens to be you. To prevent demoralization, the method emphasizes tracking long-term delta, not daily perfection.
How do you measure that delta effectively?
By preserving the data. Do not delete your early vlogs.
Keep the cringe videos.
Keep them. Keep your recording from day 1 of the 21-day timeline. Keep grinding through the daily recordings, pushing through the discomfort of noticing the gap and testing new hypotheses. Then, on day 14, sit down and watch day 1 and day 14 back to back.
Oh, wow. That would be a stark contrast.
The contrast is exactly what provides the motivation. You won't merely notice that you are making fewer grammatical errors, you will notice a fundamental shift in the velocity and rhythm of your speech.
You'll literally see the mental lag evaporating.
You will physically see it. You will see your day 14 self speaking with a fluidity and a baseline confidence that your day 1 self simply did not possess.
That's amazing.
Providing yourself with that objective, visual proof of your own cognitive rewiring is arguably the greatest motivational tool available to a learner.
That is an incredibly empowering framework. It completely demystifies the process of achieving fluency.
It takes the magic out of it and replaces it with mechanics.
Right. It removes this pervasive idea that learning a language is about having some innate gift or a special linguistic talent. The data is telling us that it is actually about applying a mechanical, highly iterative, step-by-step process to your daily life.
It is entirely about taking agency over your environment and your cognitive output. The agonizing delay between your thoughts and your words is not a permanent flaw in your brain. It is a measurable distance.
A measurable distance.
And it is a distance that you can systematically close by engineering your habits and forcing retrieval.
We have covered a massive amount of ground today, and I want to make sure we synthesize all of these actionable steps for you, the listener. Based on this deep dive into the source material, you now have a complete, highly practical blueprint for eliminating mental lag. Let's recap the journey.
Step 1. Eliminate the false security of the bilingual dictionary. Embrace the friction of the monolingual advanced learner's dictionary to force immediate retrieval and build direct neural pathways through collocations.
Step 2. Radically restructure your external environment. Implement digital ecosystem engineering by switching all of your device operating systems to English, creating functional consequences for linguistic failure.
You have to raise the stakes.
Exactly. And physically map your living space not with single-word sticky notes, but with functional lexical chunks to hack your muscle memory.
Step 3. Bridge the gap to active production using the 21-day vlogger method. Follow the scaffolding moving from static observation to dynamic action to complex emotion to build a reservoir of available English and automate your sentence structures.
And finally, step 4. Ensure accuracy through pushed output. Use your smartphone to record those daily vlogs, endure the discomfort of watching the playback to notice the gap, and treat your interlanguage errors as data to be tested and refined the next day.
It's a complete cycle.
The data from these studies makes one thing abundantly clear. Immersion isn't a geographic location, it's a cognitive environment, and it's one you can engineer right there in your own kitchen.
That is the ultimate takeaway from the literature. Fluency is a habit built through sustained, structured effort.
Before we wrap up this deep dive into the source material, I want to leave you with a brand new, highly intriguing concept that builds on the neurology we've discussed today.
This is a fun one.
As you embark on this 21-day practice, as you successfully reduce that mental lag and close the gap between your thoughts and your output, you might start to experience a very strange psychological phenomenon.
You might notice that your personality starts to subtly shift.
It is a well-documented side effect of advanced language acquisition. It is fascinating because without that heavy cognitive buffer of mental translation weighing you down and filtering your thoughts, many learners report discovering a slightly different identity in their second language.
Yeah, they really do.
You might find that your English self is more direct, perhaps a bit more outgoing, or even wields a completely different sense of humor than your native language self.
Yeah.
It is an incredible side effect of building this new neural architecture. You aren't just learning new words, you are building a new mode of expression.
It's like unlocking a new part of your brain.
Furthermore, as the vlogger method really takes root in your subconscious mind over these 21 days, pay very close attention to your dreams.
Ah, the dreaming milestone. It is often cited as the turning point in the literature.
Exactly. When your inner monologue switches completely to the target language, even while you are unconscious and sleeping, when you wake up and realize you just argued with a dream character entirely in English, that is the ultimate subconscious proof that this methodology has successfully rewired your brain.
It means it's working.
So, the final thought to mull over. Dare to start the process today. Dare to change your phone settings right now. Embrace the friction, and let's see just how long it takes until your dreaming mind forgets to pay the toll at that internal translation booth and simply drives straight through.